we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and support the recognition of traditional Aboriginal law across the nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging on this land. Hello everybody and welcome to our very first episode of the Loving Podcast. I am Jenna Hayes and I am a filmmaker and a One Love warrior. I have created this podcast series in order to share the voices and stories of inspiring people in my life, who I believe have been put here today to help heal our world. Our very first guest is someone who is equal parts strength, beauty and power. He is a young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man. He is a dancer, a poet, a photographer and a powerful Indigenous activist. To me, he is most definitely a voice of our unified future. I am so excited to talk to him today. Welcome to the Loving Podcast, Luke Currie Richardson.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Probably not so young anymore, but...
Yes, you are. One of the things that I find really wonderful and beautiful about you is that you're not afraid to be open and you kind of champion educating people. It's a really difficult thing because a lot of times, obviously, you do have to repeat yourself and there are things that people should know. And it's like you're having to repeat history by talking about this stuff. But for someone like me, who I am a white Australian, I am a woman, as much as I read and travel and watch movies, I am never going to understand how it feels to be a black man in Australia. And in order for me to understand it as much as I can, sharing space with you, having a conversation with you, exchanging energy with you, that is the only way that we are going to connect and we are going to be able to heal each other, society, So I think it's really important to be open. And I think it really does come down to compassion. Compassion for each other's places and spaces in the world.
Yep.
Because there are many ways that I'm ignorant, I'm sure. And I don't even know that. Mm-hmm. I am unaware of my ignorance. And it's only me recognizing that through having conversations with you and other people who are, willing to talk all of this stuff through. And I think recording these conversations, we can actually then spread that message and spread that information through the world. And so it becomes a much bigger tool for healing.
Absolutely.
So I think you're amazing and I think that's really special. And I also think that's a little bit rare. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. I think when you first messaged me, I was like, why do you want to interview me? I think you said angel or something along those lines, something like that. And I was just like, I really appreciate you giving me your platform and amplifying my voice. I think the first step to get rid of this ignorance is to have these conversations. You're 100% right. And in that sense, I don't think you're so ignorant. You want to learn. I see ignorance when people don't want to learn or don't want to change. And I think you're on the right path.
Thank you. I would like to start by asking you, what are the challenges you face living as a black man in Australia?
Yeah, you definitely jumped right in. During the intro where you introduced me, you acknowledged me as an activist. That's number one. I don't think I'm an activist.
Okay.
I think it's this identity, for me, it's this identity about walking in two worlds of my contemporary life, the wider Sydney, the moments here that we're living in right now, and my cultural life and my cultural things that I need to do as a black man, Those are the things that I kind of am navigating day to day, One of my poems in my posts I've recently put up is, white people see me as an activist, black fellas see me as a leader, and I don't see myself as either. And that is my constant day-to-day basis. I do have this small following on Instagram and people come to look for me, the white following come to look for me for answers and learnings and so on and so forth. And the black mob look for inspiration and power and like I'm broken just like them, It may seem like that, like right now I'm going through a breakup and stuff like that. It's tough. It's tough. It's I'm just a normal human being, and these outside labels that people put on me kind of it's a lot of pressure as a black man, people are looking for hope. People are looking for someone to blame. People are looking for X amount of things. These are all these outside exterior things that are kind of put on me at this moment in this point in time, especially in 2020. I felt it a lot. But yeah, you know, it's a journey, and I think life is a journey with everyone, and I'm navigating it. I need to make it real clear that Brother Luke, the entity, whatever that is, however people know me, I am not perfect. I struggle. It's hard. I don't have all the answers. And when you sent me these questions through, I'm like, I actually don't really know, to be honest. So, but we're gonna dive into those, and that's the exciting part. Yeah.
Do you feel that, or do you realize, I guess, that you being open to talking about those challenges, that does make you special? Because you are willing to put yourself in a vulnerable position in order to further society or heal society. So in a way, you know, you are a leader.
I think the biggest thing for me is there's always aspects of leadership in a lot of things that a lot of people do. You know, some people see me as a leader, but yet I'm still following my elders. I'm still following my community leaders as well. So people say, well, a good leader knows when to follow as well. And I'm like, well, you know, for me, the idea of leadership, I would rather my peers and those next generations to come side by side and let's walk together. Like, let's all go together, you know, the Vanessa Turnbull Roberts, the Maine Whites, that Ruby Watson's up north, these people that are what I consider my peers, my brothers and sisters on the front line, you know, used very loosely there, they're the ones that I feel like, you know, we're in our specific avenues, you know, with me, with my art and stuff like that. I do have aspects of leadership. I do have those kind of characteristics, but I'm still following as well. And, you know, people are like, well, that's spoken like a true leader. It's like, oh man, like there's no winning. It's just kind of how do I identify and what makes me comfortable to identify in this life. And if people want to paint me with the leadership or the activism stuff, that's okay. I can live with that now. I've come to terms with that. But myself, you know, I'm just another brother navigating this life out here, you know, trying to pay the bills and survive this rat race in the big city.
Do you feel that it's more so the fact that you are put on a pedestal? None of us are any more special than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Successful actors, successful musicians, successful anybodies are put on pedestals and used as examples of this is what we need to emulate. So I guess, do you think that is something that is more to the point?
That plays on my mind a lot, yeah. Like, I was one of the kids that kind of grew up and never really asked for autographs or photos of famous people, whatever that may be. And of course, my father always said at the end of the day, you know, everyone shit showers and shaves, you know, like just like you do. So it helps me stay rooted. It helps me stay grounded, you know, like I'm the brother that just wants to travel and see the things and help the community and do what I need to do to bring us all on par, you know. I acknowledge my privileges as a black man with 2 parents in the household that work tirelessly to give me the life that I have. How do I bring those that are less fortunate in my community up to our level so that we as a mob, as a group of people, as a race are stronger, you know. One thriving is all of us thriving, but if there's a lot of us not, we are as strong as our weakest link, unfortunately. So we need to be able to carry them and do our part, you know, and that's okay. That's okay with me.
What do you see for yourself? I mean, you were a dancer.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me about, I guess...
Tell me everything I do or have done or...
Every single day of your life, I want to know what you did. Take me through, your journey.
Yeah, my journey. I grew up in a very privileged household lifestyle. My mum, she's the freedom. She's got the big heart. She wants to see the world and travel around Australia in a Winnebago or something like that. Dad's like, yuck. And my dad, he's been in the public service since he was 18, worked his way up, got a public service award, medal of something like that. I don't really know, to be honest, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but I was born in Cairns. I moved to Brisbane for my primary schooling, high schooling in Canberra. In Canberra, I was surrounded by that greatness we were talking about earlier. You know, my cousin is Paddy Mills. He plays in the NBA. He's the Boomers point guard / captain. Another cousin of mine, he played for the Wallabies Sevens, and both represented Australia at their sport. And then there was me, just kind of like the third wheel, the third cousin, the kind of just plodding along. So it was seeing that, I guess, like surrounding that strive, that hunger to achieve a goal. And I was like, okay, I want to be able to represent my people on the world stage. at age 10, I started traditional Torres Strait Island dancing. And that wasn't to become a dancer, with all the stigma of dancers being soft and male dancers being soft and so forth. So I had no interest in becoming a dancer, but I had a passion to learn my culture. And through that, for me, living in Canberra was learning traditional Torres Strait Island dancing. So you can think about the Torres Straits, tip of Queensland, near the equator, really hot tropical beaches and islands. And here I am, NAIDOC week in Canberra, July, freezing, half-naked, grass skirts, dancing on cement, absolutely cold. But through that, strengthened my identity as an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man through dancing and singing and making these props and artifacts. I was still playing basketball and I really wanted to play professionally. I didn't have the mindset. I didn't have the work ethic. I didn't have it. And I realized that at 18. I was like, well, I'm not going to do it. I wasted a couple of years of my life not working as hard as I should have been in those early ages. And then Jacqueline Cornforth, my close cousin, she was like, come and try contemporary dance. You're really good on stage with the traditional stuff. Come try this out. And I was like, what? No, I'm a baller. Like, I'm not going to be wearing tights and like thinking of this really, the negative stereotypes about softness and she wouldn't take no for an answer. She dragged me along and we went to one Wednesday class, and I think the Saturday after that was an audition for their mid-year piece and their major production. And sure enough, I was successful in the audition. Here I am. And I was like, well, if I'm doing this now, it's because I want to go and dance with Bangarra Dance Theatre. This is my moment. This is my chance to be able to represent my people, my culture on the world stage, be like my other two cousins, and like let's go. Let's just dive into it. Got great feedback from the family members, like other parents, like, it looks like you're a seasoned performer. It looks like you've been dancing for ages. You got a stage presence, and inflated the ego a little bit I think at 18 years old. And I was like, okay, here we go. Like, sweet, I'm on a pathway. It's okay. Maybe it's a calling. Yeah.
Did it feel like a calling? Like, were you locked into
dance as a calling? No, it didn't feel like a calling, but it felt like my way out. It felt like my way out from behind a desk, out from Canberra. I love you, Canberra. I'm not running you down, but I miss it now, actually. Yeah, so I went to a school called NAISDA, National Aboriginal Islander Skills Development Association up in Gosford, where people leave their communities, leave the safety of their families to explore the big world in Gosford. So, yeah, and I embarked on this dance journey, this dance career, full-time training. And the first year, we're actually in the same position right now. People were looking at me as a leader, and I was like, that's not me. I got no idea what I'm doing. I've never done full-time dance. I don't know ballet. I don't know Afro jazz. I don't know any of this. Like, I need help. So the second year, I freaked out a bit. I got a bit overwhelmed, and I was like, I can't be here. Like, I can't be this leader for these mob from community, that some of them haven't had left their community. So for me, being a city boy, of course they're going to look for help and knowledge, and of course that's my duty to help them. But in the dance world, no idea. I made the decision to further my studies at QUT up in Brisbane. With the help and guidance of Stephen Page, the director of Bangarra, and he was like, head up to QUT if you're taking this seriously, if you really want to challenge, see how you go there. And sure enough, I auditioned and got in, and I drowned. I drowned. Yeah. So I had no aspiration of going to university, and here I am studying a dance degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance Performance, at a university with people that have been dancing since they were 2, 3, and he's this guy that's started when he was 18. He's probably, 21 when I went to QUT, and he's out of it. Like, the only black person in his course, there was 2 others, but they were in the education stream. Yeah, I drowned. I really drowned. It was terrible. It was rough. And during that time, the guy was like, "You're not coping well." Yeah. And that put me to the moment. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm quitting. I'm away from family. I'm a foreigner in this field. I gave it my best shot. I'm just not surviving. Yeah. The next day, I go to school, and I actually lived in the Shire, catching buses early morning. And I got in one morning, and I went to get myself breakfast. It was still 6 a.m. or 6:30, and I checked both my bank accounts, and I had probably $3 for the next 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm done. I just got growled yesterday. I'm done. I'm going home. Mum and Dad can look after me. Stuff it. I'm done. So I get there, and I get to class now, and we had double ballet in the morning and then rehearsals, and this is on an empty stomach, and then a psych lecture, and then I had after-school rehearsals with a collective. And in that time, I had a missed phone call from Stephen Page, and I thought, damn, the tutor lecturer has called, and it's like, this guy's playing up, come and pull his head in, and I'm here packing it. I'm like crapping myself, and I called him after classes, after my day, and he's like, I'd like you to come down to Bangara and start a traineeship with us. And it was like the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, oh my God, I was literally just going to drop this. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I'm down in Sydney, like dancing with my dream company out of nowhere. So,
but do you think that training, those 3 years, really did, as much as it felt like you were drowning, and they really did inform you and prepare you for Bangara?
I think the mental strength did. I don't think the dance basis, because Bangara's style is very unique. It is not. It's not anything is taught in schools. But the mental strength of university is what got me through. Is what I guess solidified me for 7 years at Bangara, or 6 years. That's what I took from that. You know, the mental strength to be on the road 6 months of the year and to be doing shows day in, day out, double shows, and keeping your body in that perfect condition, or fighting through adversity and injuries to keep the show going, which I highly disagree with. That's terrible. Such a show must go on is a terrible saying. I hate that. No, the show does not have to go on. A person's mental health and health in general is actually more important than the show. Let's get that rule straight right out off the bat. Definitely. And I left in 2018. I joined the company in 2012, traveled the world. My heart was with the remote community performances on basketball courts, with camp dogs jumping up and bird pooing on the stage. That was the best, you know. I would trade all of that for sold out seats in New York, Paris, wherever, for a performance of 130 people highlighted by cars and under the stars in Northeast Arnhem Land and the Torres Straits and so on and so forth. I would do that. Just trade it all. Yeah. After that, I became an independent artist. People label me, I think, as a multidiscipline artist. I call myself a storyteller because it feels what's more real to my cultural heritage. We're the oldest storytellers in the world. And that's on a variety of platforms. My passion at the moment is photography. Spoken word, poetry at the moment is a big thing for me. It's from school and the low levels, English is in the stigma of not knowing how to correctly write and talk as a black man in Western society has taken its toll on me. And I've only just now at 32 kind of opened up and explored that and love it, that there's no right way, there's my way, and that's right for me and my emotions. So yeah, and now I'm just trying to navigate how to use a platform on my Instagram as a positive influence and not take as influencers tend to do. Then how do I take that privilege and share it with the mob? So don't know if you've seen Feed a Family, and it's the constant growing and giving. That kind of is what I'm trying to do.
So tell us about Feed the Family. Tell us what that is.
During all the Black Lives Matter stuff, I needed a lot of help. And to be real, you're the first non-Indigenous platform that I've done an interview for since then, because the amount of pressure that non-Indigenous Australians, white Australians wanted answers. They wanted to ride the wave of diversity in that time. So I was like, hey, do you want to do this podcast? Can you jump on? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I was like, oh my God, like all of a sudden everyone was interested. Yeah. And I was like, yo, I shut off to all of white Australia, non-Indigenous Australia. I was like, nah, I'm in this for my people. So the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to feed families. My cousin, like I said earlier, the NBA star, Paddy, he just donated like 1 point something ridiculous, a big millions of dollars or a couple $1 million to Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And I was like, how do I do that as an independent artist in Australia? And I've got my platform, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should just feed a family. I was like, what if we put a call out to companies that want to really get involved? You know, this diversity is still going. Like, people want to be seen helping Black people. Like, we got our first sponsor, which was Big Bang Ballers, and they donated $500. And then from there, that grew to, I think, $3,500 when I did a little call out, and I was able to feed, I think it was about 8 families.
That's just amazing, though.
8 families at $250 a gift card. And that just emotionally it was exhausting. You know, you hear these stories about how they're struggling in the system, and a few aunties have lost their kids to suicide, but still the community still comes to their house, and they have to feed them, and they got no money. And so that took its toll on me the first time. I wasn't expecting that. I thought everything would be happy and like smiling and, oh yeah, like cool, I get a feed here. But no, it was almost like an emotional outlet for these people. Like, oh, like thank you. Like,
how many families were there?
At that time, the first round was, I think it was 6 or 7, possibly 8. I think it was about 8.
8. So you didn't
actually
have
10, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't have like 50 or whatever coming at you, and you had to pick.
No. I thought, because I only had $500, I only had 250 gift cards that were donated.
Yeah.
And I was asking who would like gift cards.
Yeah.
And it went the other way. More people were offering to donate.
That is amazing.
Than asking for help. But sure enough, we got rid of the first batch. Yeah. And then last month I did the second round again, and I've got a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of gift cards. Yeah. And it's all from the following. There's no organizations, there's no companies. It's all people that want to help. They don't know where to help. So I've had donations as high as $2,000.
That is amazing.
I opened one yesterday. It was $1,200. And these are just Instagram followers that are wanting to help the community. And that's what I love about it. You know, people are like, thank you very much for doing what you do. And I'm like, no, this is a community effort. Let's make this really clear. This is not me. This is a community, because I can't do it without the money. I'm an independent artist. It's just me using a platform. The biggest thing for me is that it's also a way for me to help practice cultural ways in modern society. Culturally, you know, you go out and you catch a big feed and you get a big hunt and you chop that up, you share it throughout the community. Now, how do I do that now? How do I practice those same cultural beliefs and ideologies in the city? You know, I can't just go out and shoot a roo or hunt, you know, X amount of ibis here in Sydney. Like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And I think the modern way of doing that is this, like, how do I feed the mob? How do I feed my community? Yeah, so this month I've been absolutely gobsmacked. I've got over $6,000, $7,000 of Coles gift cards, and the goal, if Coles is hearing me, is if I'd like you to match every dollar that I get, so that we can make that more effective, I guess. So that's the goal, is to try and get a company on. But what I love about it is that there is no company on at the moment. I love that it's people powered. We don't have to wait. We don't have to take that candid photo, you know. And that's the biggest thing, is when I hand these out, I do have a big following, but this is not the look at me give. None of these people are getting their photos taken. All their identities are quiet. It's not me taking a video and I'm like, he's person number one and this is their sob story. No, that's not about that. It's like, just do good, you know. I don't like the idea of people being praised for doing good. That should be the bare minimum in today's society. But because there's so much trash going on in the world, we celebrate that and we're numb to the other stuff. And that's what hurts me. And I think going back to leadership and all that, that's actually quite sad, you know. You think at the basic structure of news and how much of the news is actually terrible.
Yeah. And
then you get a good feel-good look at the puppy walking down the street with on its 2 front legs or whatever. Like,
and it's not even that great. It's not $6,000 has been given to this amazing person to feed 50 families.
Yeah, it's usually trash, the news. So, but I also don't believe that I should be celebrated for what I'm doing. I think society should be on that level. I think everyone should be able to just be doing good where they can, and granted with whatever privilege you may or may not have, you know, like within your own needs and powers. So, yeah.
Western society, the way it's headed, it's the opposite of First Nations culture, where it's all about community, it's all about taking care of each other. This is why I think that Indigenous cultures around the world are the cultures that need to take us into the future. I know you don't like me saying this, but you are special because you are setting an example that's really important, that is not often seen in the world today. By everybody watching what you're doing or hearing what you're doing, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I can do this. Not the same thing, but something that is about bringing people together as opposed to me, you know? So I really want you to be proud of yourself, you know?
I'm definitely proud of myself.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's definitely hard to navigate, and day in, day out is a success, navigating this world, for not even just a black man, there's added challenges there, but you think about all the pressures as a person that we put up with, I think we should be celebrating our daily successes, even though we're quite numb to them.
Yeah.
We survived another day. Some of us, we have roofs over our heads. Some of us have bellies full. That's a success. And those are things that we need to be more grateful for. And I'm definitely proud of myself to be able to use what I can do, and I still think I can do more. So that's the biggest thing. I think people with big hearts and that are constantly giving don't feel like they're giving. And these are some hard truths that I've kind of had to come to sit in. And what else can I do now? Like, how else can we do this? How else can the community get behind us? Like,
Yeah. I have a question.
Ooh, that's interesting. This is your podcast. I'd hope you'd come with questions.
So Black Lives Matter. I found it incredibly exciting as a white person because I was seeing all of these people be mobilized, to make the world a better place and a more equal place and to fight for the rights of others that are in less fortunate positions.
Yep.
I found that really positive and I was really excited. A lot of my black friends or Indigenous friends were struggling during that time. You said that you had to switch off from the non-Indigenous world in order to kind of protect yourself.
Yeah.
When there is that kind of momentum, what can the non-Indigenous world do, when obviously the black world is in a different space? Like, it's almost like we were experiencing that moment in time in complete opposite ways.
Yeah.
How could we have used or continue to use that momentum in a positive way that doesn't feel like it's suffocating or...
For me, I think it happens, and it still happens, and there's a saying in the black community is, it's not my job to teach you. And although I agree to that to some extent, I also highly disagree because we've learnt from the history that they're not being taught in schools properly, The education system has failed our people teaching the true history, the true knowledge, and our side of the story. So then if it's not our job to teach, whose job is it then? Do we just leave it up to white teachers and the white textbooks and the white side of history? That's where we've gone wrong. So although I'm absolutely tired and exhausted by it, unfortunately it is our job to an extent. What I am against is people sliding in my DMs asking to be educated when there is copious amounts of articles, and my culture, my history is not a DM message. If you're passionate about it, go and study it. Go and study it. Like, it's not a passing trend either. Like we talk about the 50,000, whatever it may have been here in Sydney and 100,000s around Australia and whatever it may be, and then a couple of weeks later there was no one at the David Dungay protests or, the Tane Chatfields or I wonder where they're going to be tomorrow when we're protesting, that question come up a lot. Like, are you proud? Is there hope for you? And I was like, there's always hope. Because as Indigenous people, if we don't have hope, we don't have a lot going for us then. The idea of putting my hope in outside sources, into the wider community is not where I put my hope, because that way it can be broken. That way it can fade. Just like the trends that are Black Lives Matter to people that aren't passionate about it. They're passionate about the trend. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, going back to your question, is that there's endless amounts of sources. There's endless amounts of organizations, Indigenous organizations that you can learn without sliding up in the DMs, and just know the sensitivity of what we're talking about is not a DM message, or it's not a 140 character tweet, or it's not education doesn't happen it does to an aspect. It can on social media, and that's what I try to do. But when you go dive into these more deeper questions, then I'm not going to educate you in my DMs. That's not my job to educate you in my DMs. And I think that's what we're trying to talk about there.
And I think that's what white society doesn't quite understand, the sensitivity, because there is such a lack of understanding. So you see something like Black Lives Matter pop off, and for the first time, so many people were like, oh, this is something important, but the delicacy of it is really not understood.
There should be those type of people, those turnouts on the daily. We talk about the big climate change protest, you know. Those turnouts with taking care of country and the climate should also be with the people, because we took care of country almost the best way possible, you know, with the fire burning and all the maintenance. So if you can get the biggest mob of people to the climate change rally, I'm sure you can get them out to our causes as well. So it's crazy, because and then you get to know, you start knowing familiar faces at these protests. And if the protests were so as big as they should be, I don't think I should be recognizing people's faces. I should be seeing new people every time. And that's what kind of, don't get me wrong, I was really ecstatic with the turnout on the 6th of June. It was overwhelming. The power there, the unity for this cause was amazing. But Black Lives Matter just didn't happen on the 6th of June.
Yeah.
It's been happening for 230 years plus years, you know. It's constantly happening. It's still happening to this day, you know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
where are you now? Where's your black squares? Where are you?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Last year, I think that really was like a full stop. And then moving forward, it's a whole new world. And there's a whole new level of awareness.
Yeah.
And there's a whole new space that people are looking to that they weren't looking to before.
Yeah, 100%.
I want every single person in this world to feel like they are worthy of love.
Yeah.
And it really is up to the individual to mobilise themselves and understand empathetically. And that's where the change is happening.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And yeah. So,
you said it right there, though. It's empathy. Yeah. There's a lack of empathy. There's a lack of connection there. Like, for me, the idea of the Australian dream is bubbled up in privilege. Like, it's the Australian dream for certain peoples, you know, and it's not. I don't think a lot of countries, you know, we talk about North Korea's propaganda or Vietnam's propaganda, but we don't address our propaganda. We don't talk about the propaganda in these other developed Western countries, you know. It's like, you're waltzing Matilda, come and bloody, no, like, propaganda, like, come on, peoples. Like, this Australian dream is man, like Stan Grant, he does a speech about it. It's one of my favorite speeches that I listen to at the gym, you know. You know, we're not young and free, you know. He says his people die young and we're not free. Like, so the idea of it being Black Lives Matter is only an American issue that's the problem. You don't see Australians' problem. You don't see that David Dungay said, "I can't breathe," like 5 or 6 years before George Floyd said that, because you don't want to know. You're blinded. You're in your bubble. You're in the bubble of what the Australian dream is, because that doesn't affect you. There's no empathy there.
I guess the Australian media has a...
Huge.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
That's kind of what I try to do with my little platform. I try to be that positive representation out there. The one thing that I also try to do is speak my truth, speak my experiences, because no one can argue those. Kind of like your feelings. You can't argue your feel. Like, you can't tell me how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling. It's not it's not something to debate about. My lived experiences about racism are not make-believe. It's not, I'm an Indigenous man that does not smoke or drink or go out and party or, I feel like I dress nicely to, you know, I feel like I'm well kept, you know, nice lined up beard, smoothly shaved bald head. You know, I do my best to break these negative stereotypes. So when I'm painted with this one brush, like, that's a damn lie. You know, I work hard for the money that I get. Like, we're all bludgers and druggers and alcoholics. Like, hold the hell up. Like, no, we aren't. That's kind of what's really painful, is the ignorance by what is supposed to be the smartest race. You know, they can't see the stupidity in these lies that they're spitting. It's tiring. It's tiring.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. I'm going to be tired for the rest of my life, you know, and that's okay. That's a sacrifice that I'm happy to make. I need to make that sacrifice. And if that's the sacrifice that I need to make to be tired, that's almost a very little sacrifice compared to those of my elders and those of my ancestors, you know, those that were hunted and massacred and raped and locked up and taken from land and displaced and all of this stuff, force-fed alcohol and cigarettes as payment, not money, and kind of enforced this drug dependency on them, because that was the payment that they were given. If me being tired in my time is the sacrifice that I make, that's pretty good. That's easy. That's easy. So I'm okay with being tired. I can have a nap. I had one before I came here. That's why my voice sounds like Barry White at the moment.
No, it always sounds like that. You've got a very smooth voice. You are currently fighting a big corporation on introducing alcohol into or close to dry communities up in the Northern Territory.
Yep.
Can you explain to us, firstly, I don't know if you like this question, what a dry community is for our international, people who don't, and also why it's necessary to stop a corporation building a massive alcohol store near these communities?
Yeah. I think I need to make it real clear that this has been a 5-year battle, and I was brought on as the social media platform type of guy. So when fighting is me personally, no, I'm trying to raise awareness, I guess, in that sense, to kind of, this is happening right now. And it was happening in the middle of NAIDOC week when I posted a video about that, and it blew up. It went crazy. That's how my input is, trying to get the numbers and trying to raise awareness to that. There's been people on the ground that have been fighting for 5 years from those 3 communities. FARE, FARE is another organisation that has been in this battle for the whole 5 years, and I was just brought on just recently. So just to help out with the cause. What are dry communities? Communities that are completely dry of alcohol. You're not allowed to take any alcohol there. For me, it's because of the ingrained generational dependency on these substances that were put on by colonization. And we're going back to what we were saying about payments in alcohol, payments in cigarettes, payments in those type of things. That has played its toll on our culture, on our community for generations. And they've instilled rules where you aren't allowed to have alcohol in certain communities throughout Australia.
Who is they?
Our communities, in collaboration with the government. I'd also like to point out that I'm also not an expert on these as well. So when I'm saying I speak from my experiences, I'm not an expert on incarceration or the alcohol abuse and stuff like that, or the history of these things. And that's a whole nother different story as to how, as a black man navigating this world, you're expected to know all of these things.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dan Murphy's, which is, from my knowledge, part of Woolworths Group, which is also a sponsor of NAIDOC Week, which was also happening, all this stuff was happening during NAIDOC Week, which was like, what the heck? Is trying to build apparently the largest Dan Murphy's alcohol outlet, 2 kilometres walking distance from 3 dry communities. During all that uproar, and they moved it 1 kilometre away from the original proposed site. So it made it I think 3 kilometres from 2 of them and a little bit further from the other one. The problem with that is they know well and truly where they're putting this alcohol store. They know the damage that it will have on those 3 communities. For me, I feel is that all I can give you right now. There's people coming up to me going, why can't they just control their alcohol? I'm just like, you don't understand the ingrained trauma that these communities have had. You think about this from the early days and this was our money. This was our currency. They paid us in alcohol. Yeah. The dependency started from that. And if you see that through the years, that's all you know. So what do you mean control that? Just like how you know how to wake up and have cereal in the morning. These people, this is an ingrained thing. And I got to be really careful here because it's a touchy subject, but this is not an Indigenous problem. Alcohol culture in Australia,
in the world,
is a problem. And through one of my poems at the moment, that white Australia can go get shit-faced at the races, but you can't accept black people drinking. If, as a person in today's society, you end the working week with a drink to wind down, how do you wind down from 230 years of trauma and abuse?
Yeah. While also having a culture still taken from you, your job.
Still happening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more nitty-gritty there, and I may be wrong in this quote here, but the CEO of Dan Murphy's All Woolworths Group was also the CEO of Origin Energy, who was also trying to frack communities up in the Northern Territory.
Yeah.
So his success rate up there with his relationships with Indigenous communities isn't too great.
Yeah.
I am just the social media trying to bring awareness to more people, to a wider audience. And there are people that have been fighting for 5 years. Ani Helen from Bagot Community, she's the face of it. I think she's the face of it, and she's going hard, and she's a strong auntie, but from the outside in, she looked a bit frail, like the real thin aunties up there, but she's going hard and she's not giving up, and that's inspirational for me,
Despite everything.
Yeah.
Indigenous communities also in Australia have some of the highest suicide rates in the world.
Absolutely.
You have spoken about mental health challenges.
Yep.
Is that something we can talk about?
Absolutely. Safe space. We're good.
I guess, are you able to talk on your experience
through
for
sure.
Or?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, if you keep it in or not, I'm going through a breakup at the moment. So that's at the moment, it's a challenge as well. I'm going to see a counsellor on Friday. Yeah. I think my first experience with it all was when my cousin took his life while I was studying, and that was tough. It was, I guess, one of my first real experiences of suicide and depression, and a family member, my first cousin, doing it and feeling hopeless. My family was in Canberra, I was in Gosford, he was in Cairns, and I couldn't go to the funeral. I couldn't be there for my family because young Tucker, trying to take his chase his career in dance, he was blinded, and as we all are to some extent, blinded by dreams and jobs, and everything else kind of gets put on the back burner. It wasn't until 2014 where I was with Bengara that I experienced depression for the first time.
You were 24?
I was 25, 26.
So that was the first time you experienced depression?
I acknowledged that I needed help.
Okay.
That I woke up and I was sad, every day. I didn't get help. The stigma with it, the hard-headedness of being this warrior, this leader, and that's probably another reason why I don't identify as being a leader, because I don't like, I guess, the pressure of what that is, and now I need to make mistakes, and that's the biggest thing for me. With my amazing support crew, I got out of that. I saw it made me change the outlook of how I look at life, and I got through that part. And saying you get through depression is not a thing. It's not like, it's gone. It's survived. No, it's like the weather. It comes and goes. You have bright days, you have rainy, stormy days, you have hurricanes, you have the worst type of things. You have days that it's just there and it's kind of chill. It wasn't till my last year, and it was the driving force as to why I left the company, was because I felt like I wasn't respected. I felt like the way I was being treated in some aspects of my job, and all jobs have these, there's all the politics and everything, so there's no perfect job. I just felt like I was getting the raw egg of it, or whatever you call that saying, I was
raw end of the stick?
Yeah, raw end of the stick or something like that. To the point where after a show, I wanted to self-harm and jump off the bridge that's near Woolloomooloo, near the domain, the one that's bridging the soccer field to Cook and Phillip. And I realized and I acknowledged, I was walking from the Opera House home and I was crying all the way. And I stopped on this bridge. It was like one of those beautiful scenes. It was this beautiful traumatic scenes, that bridge is perfectly lit. It's kind of just looking over the street, and the soccer field isn't quite lit up. And so you got the photographer and the aspiring videographer coming out of me here. And that sadness turned into kind of a laughter of knowing that my shittiness at this point is very valid. It hurts as hell. It hurts terribly. But it's because someone's making me feel like that. So if I don't care about this dude,
So it was somebody in the company making you feel that way?
It was a collective, yeah.
Okay.
And I knew that if I were to jump off this bridge, that I wouldn't be able to, it wasn't high enough to take my life unless I landed smack bang on my head. But it was enough to do damage to my legs that I would never dance again. And that was like, I'm done. Like, I'm absolutely done. And that idea for me in that given moment was sadness turning into laughter, going like, I'm seriously like this because of a group of people, because of a job that I obviously don't love anymore. There's other things out there. And with the 2014 experience, I realized that for me, work and my problems and my issues were within a 4-kilometre radius from work to home to work. And I could map it out in a circle. And when you draw a circle on the map, I was like, this is where my troubles are. And then you zoom out on your iPhone and you see how big the world is. You're like, that's quite minuscule. So I played that for me. That was one of my coping mechanisms. Like, no, my problems are just here in this circle. For those that can't see my hands, I'm doing little hand circles. Yeah, and I was like, the world is so much bigger than this. And that's what kind of got me through 2014 and 2018, that my problems, no matter how big they are in this given moment and which are valid, are just here. And outside that 4-kilometre radius is a whole new world. There's a whole new more opportunities, more experiences, maybe more like worse experiences as well, you know. But it helped me put everything into context for me, you know, that it was only one person, or it was this person, or it was this incident that triggered me. And I'm not perfect now. I still fall in and out of it.
But depression?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to go see a counsellor on Friday. You know, I've booked it in, and I think the number one thing for me is to not shy away from that. Is to not...
emotion.
The emotion, you know, my tears, my pain, my anger, you know, are equally as valid as my happiness. How do we deal with that? And this is just my thoughts. I'm not a professional on the mental side of things. That's just how I kind of navigate that side of things, you know, and to be openly comfortable with saying I'm going to go to my counsellor, like that's not something that, again, shouldn't be celebrated. Oh man, he's like, that should be normal. You know, I'm sick today, I'm going to the doctor. What kind of sickness are you? You know, just, you know, I'm in my feels. I'm a bit emotional at the moment. You know, that should be something that's kind of like, I'm going to go get cold and flu tablets or something like that, you know, like. And I think as a Indigenous man, what worries me is that there's not enough medically trained professionals that understand the challenges that we walk with. So that's why I'm going all the way out to Penrith, because there's an Indigenous group out there that does this. And I think that's what scares me as well. Like the help, there is help that is kind of almost paintbrushed over the help. You know, you all get taught that, but how do you address that with the challenges of Indigenous Australia?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because a white counsellor is not going to understand your journey.
And that's what scares me a lot.
Yeah.
That's what scares me. How do you know what I feel? Maybe maybe it's on the generic stage.
Yeah. But
right now, like I said earlier, I'm navigating this idea of being an activist or being a leader, and surrounding myself with protests and that strong, powerful energy that's needed. Some people might say it's dark energy. It's just energy in that given space. I don't believe those protests are toxic spaces, but they are full with energies that are emotional energies and power. And how do I navigate that? And how, if you've never been to a protest, how do you know what that is? Yeah. How do you know those feelings? Yeah. If you can disconnect with death from someone that you don't know, how do you know what it feels like when I see another Indigenous man getting strangled in his prison cell by 7 coppers? How do you know what the mental traumas are there? I don't know those answers. Maybe there is a generic answer to that. Maybe that is quite generic that we can paint that brush with, you know. How do we know what it's like to deal with white Australia happily tearing down trees, traditional, ancient, sacred trees, but protecting a 130-year-old bloody statue that you can just rebuild? Yeah. You know? Yeah. So, like, how can the media drag my people through the dirt when we're not singing an anthem written by a Scottish man that's 30 years old? Is it a Scottish man or a Welsh man? One of them. He was not bloody Australian. And you hold that. And that in itself is propaganda. Come on, people. That's a tool to make you, differentiate you from another country. Let's go. But then at the same time, not hold our 60,000-year cultural sites, practices, languages, kinships to the same value as this 34-year-old anthem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how does a counsellor or understand that? I don't know, but what I do know is what are my coping mechanisms and knowing when I need to get help. Am I at my lowest right now? Far from it. But it's always good to go get a checkup. Go kind of check your blood levels, see if everything's all right. Yeah, go get a checkup. It's okay. Just go out and vent. We all need to vent. Something's going on there, and they might discover something that's on your shoulder, weighing you down, that might just get released, and you go, oh, okay, sweet, yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. I think that, me knowing mental health and it being a genetic thing in my family, hearing you talk about going to see a counsellor, that's powerful, and that isn't something that anybody should ever be ashamed of.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So it's wonderful.
Appreciate you.
You're amazing, and this has been the most wonderful conversation and really enlightening and really inspiring and really beautiful. I have one more question. If you had one dream for this nation, just one, what would it be?
I wish our law was equal to your law. I think our culture is equal to your culture. I think you would look at 800-year-old trees equally as important as 130-year-old statues. I think our traditional language would hold more than a 35-year-old anthem. I would love to see an Indigenous female Prime Minister. I think, and I'm probably going to get put to the cross for this, but I feel like white men have run this country so down. And I don't even mean economically. I mean spiritually. I think environmentally have torn up this mother.
Yeah.
And I think it's time for a woman, a black woman, to nurture it back to strength. Do we have that black woman? I mean, possibly maybe we don't. But that's what a dream is. And I think I know a few bloody good candidates that could take that helm, Yeah, that's kind of the dream, I think it's time to be nurtured, There's nothing like a mother's hug. The father, the father can give you that hard love and show a softer side of hardness. But I feel like a mother can be cutthroat, but there's nothing like your mother's hug. And I think it's time for a mother's hug to heal this nation, and see it from that view. And yeah, no disrespect to Julie. No disrespect to Julie.
She did amazing with what she had.
Absolutely. And as the first as well, she did her thing in that terribly white man's world, in that system. But she did a good job. But I think the hard-headedness and the strength and the power and the softness and the love and of a black woman is where we're at. And I think that will, maybe not economically. I think this is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the cultural side where we're trying to nurture back the mother.
But that doesn't mean that can't include economically, because that strength is obviously going to be there as well.
Absolutely. We got Adani up on the Great Barrier Reef going to tear that stuff up, and that's going to ruin a lot of jobs up there. It's going to give as well. But again, that's not my professional field, but just me ranting. But
it's redirecting. It's redirecting humanity in where...
where's our focus?
Yeah, prioritizing survival.
Absolutely.
Of Earth, as opposed to
perfect example
filling pockets.
Is the trees and the statue. Yeah.
Luke, thank you. I'm so sorry we have to wrap it up. You're amazing. Appreciate you, and everybody can follow Luke on his socials. What are your socials?
Just Instagram. Just at Balaluke. BALALUKE.
Amazing. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank you all for listening to our very first episode of the Loving Podcast. So every episode, we have aligned with a grassroots non-profit to help drive positive change for all Australians. This episode, we have aligned with Justice for David Dungay. On average, every month over the last 30 years, an Indigenous Australian has died in custody. In December 2015, David Dungay Jr. was one of them. David was being held at the Long Bay Jail in Sydney and was almost due for release. But a coronial inquest found that David died surrounded by 6 guards as they held him down by the back of his neck. Parts of the episode were caught on camera where David screamed countless times, "I can't breathe." For the past 6 years, his family have been fighting for answers, for justice, and fighting to create systemic change that will prevent Indigenous Australians dying in custody now and into the future. To support the Justice for David Dungay campaign and to save Indigenous lives, please go to thelovingpodcast.com and click on Luke. Don't forget to follow Luke's journey via his Instagram to check out his Feed a Family campaign, as well as the other causes he is closely aligned with. Also, be sure to continue to support Black Lives Matter Australia to help end gross inequality for our First Nations people. Please tune in next Wednesday when we talk to the incredible Samantha Harris about trailblazing her way through the Australian beauty industry.
My mum does say that I was born to do it. She always has this stupid little story when she had the ultrasound of me and I'd moved.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the lady's called that does the ultrasounds. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't know.
We haven't had babies yet.
Yeah, no. Anyway, that lady, she was like, by the looks of it, I think it could be a girl because it looks like she's posing in your belly.
Are you serious? That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Big love to you all.
The Loving Podcast is a One Love Films original podcast. It is recorded at Forbes Street Studios, Woolloomooloo by Charlotte Rochecouste and Nicholas Rowse. Our editors are Zoltan Fecso and Jenna Hayes. Our music is composed by Jenna Pratt and guitarist Joshua Gonzalez. Podcast photography and cover art is created by Sarah Fountain. Our behind-the-scenes photographers/videographers are Danielle Mazzucci, Barnaby Downs, Paul King, and Ryan Andrew Lee. Our podcast imagery is created at Innkeeper Studios. I am your narrator, Victoria Jane Hind, and our producer is Jenna Hayes.